you've been watching my previous tutorials about 2D arrays, you'll see we've gone over how to declare them, how to initialize them so that every element in the array or the table contains the same value, and how to perform a simple serial or linear search of the array. The simple linear search will try and find something that you're looking for and then end the array as soon as a match is found. So we have the remnants of that code just here with our two exit for statements, one to exit the inner loop looking at columns, one to exit the outer loop looking at the rows, and also we see the use of a Boolean flag variable. In this tutorial we're going to look at a different approach to the linear search. This time we want it to look at every single element of the array, but we want it to actually count how many times does the value we're looking at actually appear in the array. Then I want it to also output the average of all values in the array. So to do that, I'm going to come up here first and I'm going to amend my variable declarations. Now I don't want the loop to end early, so I don't actually need the Boolean flag variable anymore. Don't worry that I've now got errors in my code, we'll sort that out soon. So as well as find, I want, let's say, count and sum to be integer variables, and then I want an average to be a double, because potentially when I divide by 60, because I've got 60 items in my array, my average could actually have a decimal place. And I'll show you what you can do with that later. Then finally, it is important that both count and sum are initialized to 0. Otherwise, potentially I've got a bug in my code where these values will end up being incorrect because they're retaining a value from earlier on, perhaps, if I add it to this program in a future time. So I've got my basic variable set up. I also want to now just go down to my linear search itself, which is this section here, and I want to delete that last exit for statement that we did, which was exiting the outer loop, and I want to get rid of the entire if statement in the inner loop. And then finally, I no longer need this final message because we're going to look at every single element in the array, and our purpose for this algorithm is slightly different to the previous one. So I've initialized a couple of variables. I've also got one more here for average, and I've got find. So the next step is to get from the user a number that they are looking for, and my numbers are a bit different in there. I've already declared and populated this array in code that you can't see, so I'll just amend the message to enter a number to find, and we're going to grab that. Notice the trim function here will remove any leading or trailing spaces that the user may have accidentally inserted, and it will also convert that number to an integer value because that's what its data type is. Now we're going to perform the linear search. What we have here with the nested loop inside another for loop is we're going to set up the basic premise of a linear search, row by row and then column by column within each row. So what we're going to do is go something like this. If the value stored in the current cell where the two indices meet of this 2D array, if that's what we're looking for, then this time we're going to increment count. Noticing that we could go like this. Count is assigned the current value of count plus 1. Or we could do it the shorthand way, count plus equals 1. Either way, it does exactly the same thing. Now that's the only thing I want in this if statement. Outside the if statement, but noticing we're still in the inner loop, I want to actually add, I'm using the plus equals again, just like with count, but instead of going plus equals 1, I want to actually add to the current value of sum the value that's stored in this particular cell in the 2D array. And that's it for my serial search. I'm not ending the search early. I do want it to look at every single element in the array. As we're doing so, we are incrementing the value of count for each time the number that we're looking for is in the array. And then we're also running a cumulative total of all numbers stored in the array. Now, after the linear search has ended, we're going to calculate and output the average and the count value. So I'm going to go average is assigned the current value of sum divided by 60. Now I know that there are 60 elements in my array based on my array declaration. I've got 10 rows and 6 columns. So then finally I've got my output. Console.writeLine. So first of all we want the count variable. The number converted to a string again. Good programming practice there. Anything in the console window, input or output, should be a string. So the number that we're looking for and find appeared count count times in the array. Noticing that I am being deliberate about some hard-coded spaces. If I don't do it, the Visual Basic compiler won't do it for me. And then finally, console.write line again. The average number in this array is converted to a string average, ampersand, full stop. Now before I get to that, I actually want to go Math.Round, convert to a string average. Let's do the convert to a string last. So go take the value of average, which is a double, so it could be 23.6 for example. Using the Math.Round function, we're going to take that 23.6 and round it up to 24, and then we'll convert it to a string. Just good programming practice for the console window. So if we run this, let's look for a number that appears a couple of times. Look, 17 appears several times in this array. Press enter. I can see that 17 appeared 4 times, and out of the total of all values, the average total is 22, sorry.